is vital to our health. At Cayman Water,
committed to caring for you. The views and opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
And welcome, K-Man, to another episode of Straight Talk here on Bobo 103.1 FM. I'm your host, Austin Harris.
And I'm Ellio Solomon, and of course, it's a pleasure to be here. How are you doing today, Mr. Harris?
I'm well, Mr. Solomon. Trust you had a happy Tuesday. I got to remind myself of the days of the week until we get back to some degree of normalcy. And I think that'll extend itself into next week because, as we talked about, next weekend is another long weekend. So, yeah, once they're out of the way, then, life can return to normal and I won't get confused at the days of the week.
This is a very relevant point. And, of course, I think we agreed also that it ends around July up until about November.
That's right.
But then we probably also agree that we'll try to lobby the new government, see if we can get one or two stuck in there.
Well, I'm sure we can do that without much stress on our part. Who doesn't like another long weekend?
Except business owners.
Except business owners. Quite right, indeed. Well, it is Tuesday, the 13th of May, and welcome to another episode of Straight Talk, being brought to you on your radio dial at 103.1 FM and simulcast live, as always, over YouTube, Instagram, on Facebook. The keywords, if you're searching for it and haven't already added it to your favorites, would be Straight Talk Radio Show for our platforms. We are continuing to be streamed live also on a secondary Facebook page, that of ACT Cruise Tourism. Whilst the discussions and the referendum may be over, obviously we continue to be grateful for the use of that platform to stream from. So wherever you are, we want to make sure you can be a part of the conversation. Today will be another open mic evening. Phone lines are open at 745-2626. You can reach out to us, give us a call, share your thoughts, and or ask your questions. Or if spending your dime on a call isn't your thing, you can use our version of our 1-800 number. That is, of course, our WhatsApp number. And you can reach out to us at 928-2562. And from there, you can either leave us a WhatsApp audio note or a traditional WhatsApp text message. Yesterday certainly was the day for WhatsApp text messages. Obviously, we welcome it.
It's a record breaker?
Well, I think so, in terms of, the almost 3 months that actually, no, we've passed the 3 months. We missed our third month anniversary by 3 days.
Well, that's what happens when you reach a certain age.
That's
you
right.
stop counting.
You stop counting. You say, we're going to be together for a while. So what's the point?
It's like when your favorite talk show host asks, Ellio, how old are you? Damn it. When you have to ask that on
Damn it, why do you have to say that on air? Well, it was only to highlight how young you look.
Yeah, okay.
See, it was a compliment in a roundabout sort of way.
It does, yeah. Well, it doesn't matter to me, and I agree with you. If you can say, hey, I'm a 99, you look like you're 38. Not that I'm 99 yet.
Not yet.
Hey.
Speaking of birthdays, I know it's kind of hard to beat the celebration and the recognition and the joyful times you had in studio, just you and I talking privately. But how was the rest of your evening, birthday boy?
Yeah, it was good. It was good. How can I say it? Went out to dinner with my lovely wife and, sat at home and did absolutely nothing.
Very nice. Did you share any of your
I got friends that bought me a book. Like, I love to read, of course.
Oh,
love to learn. Yeah. I don't know if I want to talk about the cake, Austin.
Okay, fair enough. We'll leave it alone.
Don't go there.
I hope you guarded it secretly when the lights went out and you just sat in the living room with
the secret's out now. The secret's out now that I'm hiding it.
And you just munched on it while watching either your favorite TV show, Netflix, or, of course, maybe even reading your book.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
something like that.
Well, it is a slightly rainy day outside. I just love it when I provide you information that you can easily tell for yourself by sticking your head out your car window.
Yeah, it's a bit like a traffic report in the Cayman Islands.
It's like, really, gee, thanks. I would not have known that if you did not share it.
Yeah.
The forecast tonight calls for partly cloudy skies, 30% chance of showers. Tomorrow we can expect, at least some more breeze. It's not quite telling us whether or not there is more rain in the forecast, but we'll wait and see. We do have an early bird caller on the line. Let's see what's on their mind. Good evening, caller. You're on the air.
Good evening. I deliberately tried to be early bird because generally I don't get you until the last 2 minutes and you say, oh, time is up.
You've done it today.
Well, you're very smart today. You have a whole 20 minutes, not to suggest you're going to use it, but if you wanted to, you could.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Whether I use it or not will depend on your reaction or interaction.
Sure, ma'am.
Really calling, for two things, but I believe I better break it down in smaller bites and just do one right now.
No problem.
And this is the biggie because it's about the cruise port. Now, I'm not by any means directing this at Ellio because of his position, okay? I just want to have some dialogue about it. And, there've been a lot of conversations going around about how many Caymanians would be out of work and all that if we don't do the piers. Mm-hmm. Now, the first thing I wanted to state, and I'm trying not to be adversarial or anything, but apparently sometimes my voice just comes across as if I'm a little bit aggressive or something. And I'm not. I'm trying to be religious.
People say the same thing about me. They say I shout, but it's just the way I talk. I don't know how to whisper. So you're forgiven in advance, my dear. Just
Thank you.
as the sign says on the door, just say it straight. We won't be offended.
Well, you're called straight talk.
That's right.
So,
yes, ma'am. So
okay.
just talk straight.
Yeah. There's a sort of a narrative that's being spun that makes it sound like if we don't do the piers, cruise tourism will end. And I disagree with that. Now, you have the whole show for yourself. So if Ellio wants to make some notes to respond, but I really would like to make, or at least speak about the points that I, want to.
The floor is yours, ma'am.
First off, I personally do not think it will be the end of cruise tourism because there are many things to suggest that the small ships are still going to be around. And even some of the more luxurious smaller ships, like a couple that have stopped in at the Brac, etc. That's one thing. The other thing is this. What are we to do with all of these people? The increase that we expect if we do the piers and the fact that they'll get on and off, they'll get off the ship earlier, quicker, because they're right up against the pier, and they'll be able to stay ashore longer. But just picture this, just Georgetown itself, the immediate vicinity of where the disembarkation takes place. I'm sure that you all know the kind of congestion that it adds. It adds that first hour, 2 hours when everybody's trying to get sorted to see where they're going. Are we preparing then to do more infrastructure upgrades, or how are we to handle these people? And the biggest one that I really want to talk about, because it's an absolute disgrace, is the lack of public toilets. We're talking about thousands of people, and not even just in the downtown area, but people who go on island tours, like 4 and 5 hour tours. They leave the Georgetown area where they can stand in line or in lines if they need to use the toilet before they go. But from Georgetown and you go all the way out is one stop, I think up at Collier's Beach, that has 2 male, 2 female toilets. At Hell, I believe they have another couple. Not all of the stops include the Turtle Center, which has a few. But we're talking about thousands of people needing, that could possibly need to use toilets. Now, when they had the Old Craft Market, there was quite a decent facility out there, but that went back to its owners, and I know it's not open to the public anymore. But there were about 4 or maybe even 6 toilets between male and female there. Now, that is of a huge concern to me, that people are walking through Georgetown, some in wheelchairs. We get a lot of people with disabilities, and they don't have some of the basic infrastructure in place. What about our attractions? We need to get real. Cayman does not have a lot of attractions, and we're not trying to develop any new ones. Stingray City, my dear, is oversubscribed, and that's bad in more ways than one. It's actually impacting the visitor experience because you're now out there like sardines. And how healthy is it for the stingrays to be fed and overfed and triple fed, and to be constantly with so many humans around? It's really not natural. So we have Stingray City. The Turtle Center can handle a few thousand people a day. You have a little pedestrian traffic in Georgetown that they possibly stop at the museum, a few little places. Don't think that our beaches are much of an attraction anymore. If you can find your way to the beach, it's like a mob on the tourism days. The one that we call the public beach, that I believe is now owned by the Dart people. That's I don't know how to describe that. You can't run a ribbon in between the way that the chairs, the loungers are set out and the umbrellas, and then you have the vendors who are rude and mostly not our people. There's open public and just smoking and promotion going on there. They did not wait to see what the results of the referendum was going to be or whether it's going to be implemented. That's been going on there for ages. What other beaches do we have? What attractions? And I know you guys are very analytical, and that's why I like you. I want you to take it step by step and name out to us where are people going when we get increased numbers, as is anticipated if we get the piers built. But even with the numbers that we now have that we're trying to push up, what do they do? What is there to do in Cayman? We don't, I really don't like it when I hear other people running down our neighboring countries and stuff that have so much natural beauty and so many attractions. And I've traveled quite a lot within our own territory, within Europe, the United States. I've traveled. And if you're going to a tourist location, particularly if you have children or something with you, you're looking for things for them to do. Now, I really want you guys to stop and think about it and then tell me what it is that tourists really do when they come here, what they're looking for. They don't need the jewelry stores because they have them on the ships, and the mega ships are going to have even more. The town of Falmouth, which I believe is one of the newer piers that was built in our region, cruise tourism has done nothing for Falmouth. As a matter of fact, it has taken away from the authenticity of a city that was more advanced than the most advanced city in the United States. They had running water long before they had it in any part of the United States. Falmouth is a very historic town. The cruise people went in there and they built a town out into the sea. So the people of Falmouth have got nothing. I mean, barely. They got nothing. They lost a lot more than they gained. And, I definitely voted against the piers because we can't handle it. That's my opinion. We just can't handle it. And we don't have enough natural attractions, and we don't even have man-made attractions. Nobody's exploring some of these other things that they do, like what's this thing where you go through the forest on a slide, sort of a, I remember that right.
Zip line.
That's it. But do we even have a facility where we have the kind of forestry where we could put a zip line? I don't think we do. I don't hear anybody coming up with new tourist ideas, new attractions. Anyway, I've probably taken up my 20 minutes. I'm going to leave you guys alone. And I'm glad I got in before it was time to shut down. And now I'll listen to you, okay? Thank you so much.
You are very welcome. Thank you very much for your comments and your subsequent questions, which you have put to us to respond to you. And as always, we thank you for tuning in and listening to the program. Hopefully we won't let you down today. Ellio, I'll give you the first bite at the apple to respond.
Well, honestly, Austin, I'm kind of two minds about this. And they say, if you have two minds, then you have no mind at all. But first, I want to state that I think that we had at least, I think you and I started this talk show on February the 10th, we got going. That gave us exactly 2 months and 20 days before we got to election. And I think we ventilated a lot about cruise tourism. And I don't want to be offensive to that lady there or anybody else. But we talked about this for 2 months and 20 days. And I did that because, one, I was representing an organization which was trying to push for cruise piers. In addition to that, I legitimately believe as a Cayman that we need to have the cruise piers. I believe it's beneficial. But that said, the people went out on the 3rd of April and they voted against the cruise piers. And that is, by the way, and not a small vote, an overwhelmingly large one. I think we only had 28% plus, just a little bit over 28% that voted in favor of it. Considering that, I would like to take the position that me personally, I don't really wish to get too much more into the commentary of it. Today we have an executive meeting, by the way, in the spirit of transparency. And at that point in time, I think I'll decide, where my future lies with respect to ACT. So if I put on my ACT hat, then I'd be happy to come in and have a discussion about it. But unless you lure me into it, unless my colleague pushes me into it, I'm happy to move on.
All right. Well, let me, with respect to the last caller, because again, I think she called with a genuine interest, obviously having her own personal position, which she very clearly, stated up front, which I respect. And she asked a number of questions for comment, and I don't want to disappoint her. So in the first instance, the argument is if we don't build cruise infrastructure, she doesn't believe cruise tourism will go away altogether. I hope she's right. But as we have discussed, to your point, in those 2 months and 20 days, and perhaps even a few days after that, we have already begun to see what the cruise lines have been threatening to the Cayman Islands for the better part of a decade, that without cruise infrastructure, they will be reducing ship calls to the Cayman Islands. We talked about this, I think, last week when we took a look at the ship schedule of arrivals into the Cayman Islands and noting how those previous statements are in fact holding true. We have gone from an average of 6 ships per week down to an average of 3 ships per week. And as we look forward in the second and third quarter of this year, which of course is forecast in advance, this may change. But if you go online right now to caymanports.com, you will see this for yourself, that as we head into the second and third quarter of this year, cruise ship calls to the Cayman Islands will go down to as little as 3 per week. And in some weeks, particularly towards the latter half of July, August, September, at least 2 weeks of every month, you're going to have 1 ship. So we are seeing a significant reduction in cruise ship arrivals into the Cayman Islands. Will that one day result in 0 cruise ships? Again, I hope not. But all I just say is that the evidence bears out the argument that cruise visitor arrivals to the Cayman Islands are dwindling. That's the first instance. The second point she made, what are we going to do? She asked the what if. If we were to build cruise infrastructure, how would we cope with the undoubted congestion that we would see in Georgetown? Obviously, by bringing in more passengers, more ships, more numbers on downtown Georgetown. That is an absolute legitimate conversation and a legitimate remark. That is why, however, and I dare say going back as far as 2009 under the then PPM, that the Georgetown Revitalization Initiative played hand in hand with discussions on the building of cruise berthing infrastructure. They recognize, we recognize, I think the country recognizes that even without cruise berthing infrastructure, we have had days when we had 4 ships in port that the congestion was almost unbearable. 10, 12,000 people descending on central Georgetown all at once created havoc in Georgetown. Hence, the Georgetown Revitalization Initiative was born. Discussions such as perhaps pedestrianizing Central Georgetown or Hogstye Bay, removing vehicular traffic, those discussions started happening. But I think if the conversation is reignited, then her legitimate point, how do we combat the expected congestion in Georgetown if we were to build cruise berthing infrastructure? Again, we would have to re-engage the Georgetown Revitalization Initiative. We would have to re-engage the conversations. Do we pedestrianize? Do we restrict vehicular traffic? What will happen in that sort of evolution? And again, these are conversations maybe for a future, but it's a legitimate point. To her other point, in terms of needed basic infrastructure, and she used toilets. I think it's a very, very valid point. When we, again, going back to 2009 under the Progressives, they included when they presented, I think, Verdant Isle, and that was, 2017 to 2021, when we had the only the first fully comprehensive cruise berthing plan, second only to when China Harbor were first on the table, going back even further years. The whole conversation of upland development was being discussed, the need to develop infrastructure that would support the new larger numbers of cruise tourism. And I would just simply paraphrase, the public were up in arms against upland development in any form. And mind you, at the time, certainly under the Verdun Isle proposal, we saw things like private sector, the Kirkconnells, the duty-free stores, and all of that taking up land development. Largely to her point, what are we doing to cater to the otherwise influx of significant cruise numbers? On the one hand, it is obviously building facilities, enlarging, expanding facilities for shopping opportunities, revenue opportunities, sales opportunities that would otherwise benefit the economy that was shut down. But to her point, toilets are a legitimate need, a basic need, but all of those would fall in the category of infrastructure, which could be included in another way of saying upland development. So to the caller, if we agree, and I say to the audience, if you agree that her points are legitimate, then the next time we have this conversation and words like upland development are included, these are the things that need to be taken in consideration, basic needs as well as economic needs. Lastly, she made the point that Cayman needs more attractions, and more to the point, she made the statement that Cayman does not appear to be developing those new attractions. I think we'll take that in two bits. In the first instance, she's right. It has been stated by the cruise lines, it has been acknowledged by the Department of Tourism, and it has been further acknowledged by the politicians of the past that we need to improve our on-land or on-island attractions, whether they be for cruise passengers or whether they be for stayover. But to her secondary statement that says we don't seem to be developing new attractions, well, again, I remind her and the listening audience of a program that was started under the former Minister of Tourism, the Honorable Kenneth Bryan, who now sits in the opposition, a program called the Visitor Experience Development Grant Program, which the then previous administration extended to entrepreneurs who would come up with ideas for how to develop new attractions or new, sort of outings or events or excursions that our cruise passenger or our tourism clientele could otherwise benefit from. I think that program at the last report attracted over 100 interested applications, but only 14 were in fact approved and granted the $50,000 startup program. So successful and so much interest was generated in it, the previous administration offered a second tranche, a second opportunity at that same program. So I simply say that whilst the new attractions may not have already come online, they have been the previous government has extended the olive branch. The previous government are thinking and are agreeing that we need more attractions. And the goal is to try to establish those attractions from the grassroots, not government creating them, because government simply can't be, in business for everything. I think we all agree with that. So with the influx, the expected influx of new cruise passengers under the cruise berthing conversation, not only were we thinking about what's going on in Georgetown, the congestion, not only were we thinking about the need for improved infrastructure, but we were also thinking about the need for new attractions, which is already underway. So we have at least potentially 14 new attractions that are yet to come online that came about as a result of that Visitor Experience Development Grant Program. So I hope that answers the caller's comments and questions. Hope it's analytical enough. But I thank her again for sharing those views. And as always, the name on the door says that, Straight Talk. And, we don't have to agree to have a good conversation. We could, as we say, we can disagree without being disagreeable. It is, however, 58 minutes past the hour, 4 o'clock, and we do have to pause and take a short commercial break. Check in with the top of the hour news brought to you by our counterpart partner, BBC News. But the phone lines are open, 745-2626. If you want to continue this conversation, give us a call, Straight Talk will return next on Bobo FM.
Bobo.
The BBC's From Our Own Correspondent.
In today's Russia, no one is allowed anywhere near the political stage if they pose a serious challenge to Vladimir Putin.
Stories and reflections from our reporters around the world.
There is a major sense of insecurity here.
More people are coming in from Sudan every day.
From Our Own Correspondent from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
How can we understand the world better?
The BBC World Service is a window onto the wider world.
A vantage point from which to survey a new horizon.
News, reports, and analysis from around the world.
Stories we think matter.
Different people from different societies.
We get to the heart of global issues.
News, stories, and global perspectives from the BBC World Service.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM. The BBC is the world's most trusted news source. And Bobo 103.1 is where you'll find the BBC World Service.
BBC News.
The world news from the BBC.
And the home of Cayman's most listened to top shows.
That's right, folks. Everyone is telling their mama about the cold hard truth.
And welcome to Straight Talk. I'm your host, Austin Harris.
And I'm Ellio Solomon.
Across Cayman, on FM, online, and on your smart speaker. This is Bobo 103.1. This is Bobo 103.1, powered by Health Services Authority. At Health Services Authority, they are committed to caring for you. They are Cayman's largest and longest-standing healthcare provider, offering the most comprehensive range of inpatient, outpatient, and public health services at 9 different locations across all 3 islands. Across Cayman on 103.1 FM, online, and on your smart speaker. The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo 103.1.
BBC News with Sue Montgomery. President Trump, on a tour of Arab Gulf states, has announced that the United States is lifting sanctions on Syria in order to give the country a chance at greatness. Syria's foreign minister hailed the decision as a turning point for the country. Our chief international correspondent, Lise Doucette, says it's hugely significant for Syria.
The new leadership, which took over after the ousting of the decades-old dictatorship of Bashar al-Assad, inherited an economy which is strangled by an extensive web of international and U.S. sanctions. The Europeans have started to lift them. The sanctions have to be lifted if Syria is to have any chance at developing economically. The UN says 90% of Syrians are now living under the poverty line.
A big Israeli airstrike on a hospital compound in southern Gaza has killed a large number of people. The Hamas-run Civil Defense Agency said at least 28 died when 6 devices struck the European hospital in Khan Yunis almost simultaneously. Our Middle East correspondent Hugo Bashega reports from Jerusalem.
The apparent target of the massive attack was Mohammad Sinwar, who is believed to have become the leader of Hamas in Gaza after his brother Yahya was killed in an Israeli strike last October. Images posted online showed several huge plumes of thick black smoke. The strikes hit the hospital compound and the surrounding area and resulted in deep craters. A freelance journalist working for the BBC was injured and is receiving medical attention. The Israeli military described it as a precise attack on Hamas members.
The UN aid chief has criticised Israel's proposed plan for aid distribution in Gaza, calling it a cynical sideshow and a deliberate distraction from continued violence and displacement. Tom Fletcher told the UN Security Council on Tuesday that no food, water, medicine or tents have entered Gaza for over 10 weeks. Will Grant reports.
Tom Fletcher said their actions amounted to the degradation of international law. He called on the Israeli government to lift this brutal blockade, on Hamas to release the hostages immediately, and urged the delegates in the chamber to act, saying they will be judged by future generations. The UK ambassador to the United Nations, Barbara Woodward, echoed the criticism of Israel and said the United Kingdom would not support aid entering the devastated territory with political or military objectives.
Ukraine's President Zelensky is travelling to the Turkish capital Ankara to meet President Erdogan ahead of a proposed peace summit with Vladimir Putin. The Russian leader suggested direct talks this Thursday in Istanbul between his country and Ukraine, but has not yet said if he will attend in person. BBC News. Pakistan has ordered an Indian diplomat to leave the country within 24 hours, declaring them persona non grata. Officials say the staff member at the Indian High Commission in Islamabad was involved in activities not in line with their diplomatic role. Eric and Lyle Menendez have returned to court in the United States for a long-awaited hearing, which will determine if they could be freed from prison after 3 decades. The brothers were convicted of first-degree murder in the 1989 shotgun killings of their wealthy parents. They have said they acted out of self-defense after years of abuse. Here's Peter Bowes.
The District Attorney of Los Angeles has cast doubt over their suitability to be released. He says they haven't been the model prisoners that some have portrayed the brothers as being, and he's cited a recent example of them having mobile phones in their possession inside prison, phones that have been smuggled in. As far as the District Attorney is concerned, he believes that they, at least at this stage, should not be eligible for parole.
The first of 2 semi-final nights in the Eurovision Song Contest has taken place in the Swiss city of Basel. 15 countries have competed for 10 of the places in Saturday's grand final. They ranged from a rib-shaking electro-pulse number from Marko Bošnjak of Croatia to a gentle ballad from Switzerland, Zoe May. Tributes have been paid to the former president of Uruguay, Pepe Mujica, who has died at the age of 89. During his single term in office, he gave away much of his salary and continued to live in a small farmhouse outside the capital, Montevideo. He spent more than a decade in jail from the 1970s for his leading role in a left-wing guerrilla group. And that's the latest BBC News.
Opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
And welcome back, man, to more Straight Talk here on Bobo 103.1 on your radio dial. We're your host, Ellio Solomon, myself, Austin Harris. Time in studio, 7 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock as we continue our open mic Tuesday. As we say, we had our own plan, but the early bird caller, first caller of the program, certainly set us in a direction where I think, at least one member of the listening audience wanted us to go. And I guess we'll continue to sail in that direction as long as the prevailing winds exist. But however, the phone lines are open if you want to be a part of it as well. 745-2626 is the number in studio if you want to call in, or you can reach out to us on our WhatsApp number, 928-2562. And from there, you can either share a WhatsApp audio note or a traditional WhatsApp text message. We do have at least 2 comments on the question on the table right now as it relates to cruise tourism. If you're just joining us, a caller prior to the break called in and suggested she did not believe that cruise tourism will dry up just because the country has decided not to engage or move forward with cruise berthing infrastructure. But she did raise a number of questions, legitimate questions regarding sort of what-if scenarios. What if we do build it, and what will we do with the congestion? What will we do in terms of the absence of basic infrastructure such as toilets? And what will we do in terms of increasing or improving on our excursions or land-based attractions, which hopefully we adequately answered. The WhatsApp message says, to that caller who so kindly called in, of course I enjoy hearing the thoughts and opinions on cruise tourism, but with the greatest amount of respect, I totally disagree that Falmouth didn't benefit with gain from the pier. Many people in the region have benefited greatly. I also want to say that how does one expect to attract innovation if the footfall and traffic isn't there? Why waste your time and especially your money? I mean, no investor just pours money into a business that is destined to fail without the footfall needed. To the point in innovation, Mr. Alexander Gums from St. Martin came to the island and shared many innovative ways to enhance our experience and businesses in the country. As for the congestion in Georgetown, our country is in charge of the allowance of volumes permitted. 2 mega-class ships hold approximately 12,000 to 14,000 people. The cruise lines have said they will not tender mega-class ships, so we now know that without the development of piers, we will lose that sector of the industry, period. The smaller ships, some of which are very outdated, leaving us tourists with little or no disposable income, and yes, very few luxury ships with less than 500 people just simply cannot sustain the level of rent and overheads needed to support a prosperous and sustainable business. I really hope that our country can navigate through the slow and painful decline which will be coming. So, again, 928-2562 is the number, or you can reach out to us on our hardline, 745-2626, for the number in studios. Ellio, any comments to make before we move on?
No, I'm happy to change the gears, Mr. Harris.
Fantastic. Well, we missed the opportunity to talk about our good news that we try to present at the half.
I guess you've delivered it.
Well, you know, we delivered some news. I don't know whether it's good or bad. 70% of the public may consider it bad, but anyway. I saw an article, I believe it was in, there's a new business newspaper, at least online, called The Independent.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure you've seen it. Well, they had a story, I think, today or yesterday, which I thought was good news. It was the headline, UCCI vocational students gain global skills on Miami tour, and just a few excerpts, and we can talk about it. The University College of the Cayman Islands has taken a major step in strengthening vocational education with a week-long educational tour to Miami. Held on the 22nd to the 28th of April, the initiative formed part of UCCI's strategy to align vocational training with global industry standards while addressing workforce needs in Cayman. The group visited institutions, took part in hands-on training, and gained insight into the sustainable construction, hospitality operations, and advanced HVAC systems. I guess that's AC. Stops included St. Thomas University, Miami Lakes Technical College, the Hilton Miami Fort Lauderdale Hotel, Burrell International Training Center, and Ream HVAC Systems. Visitors were introduced to the latest technology and practices in cosmetology, practical nursing, automotive technology, and sustainable building design. I think that is fantastic news.
Absolutely.
And certainly to see vocational studies and training taking place and being added to the curriculum at the tertiary level, that is at the university level, is also, I think, a feather in our cap, but certainly a feather in the university college's cap, certainly highlighting, I guess, perhaps the absence of vocational training, which many will say should take place legitimately in the high school years before you graduate high school. But when that doesn't happen, it's nice to see that the University College has, in fact, added that to its curriculum. We certainly need more of it. I think of the young people who are attending UCCI. I can still see their young, fresh faces in my mind the last time I visited. And I think this is a fantastic offering and another example where I believe the University College continues to go from strength to strength. Certainly in a previous evolution under older moons, the University College introduced curriculum, new programs, particular to developing, help me out here for a second. I had it on the tip of my tongue.
You're talking about all the electrical stuff?
Well, there was electrical things they did, but, blast it all. I've just lost it entirely. I'll have to come back to it. But they started a number of programs where, again, when you look at the labor breakdown in the Cayman Islands in terms of where the most work permit holders or work permits are being granted, I think the university has clearly read the same things we have and decided to not just pay lip service, as we talk about, but to where they can obviously implement programs, added new curriculum programs that could lead to changing that status and by upskilling Caymanians. So whether it be under the previous president, Roy Bodden, or now the new chairman, Gilbert McLean, and there's also the new president whose name escapes me, but he's leaving to go on to greener pastures. But whilst those persons were at the helm at the University College, I think they each made their own individual contributions that have led to the betterment of the university and in particular the students who attend. So bravo and congratulations to UCCI and for obviously this additional step in the right direction.
Well, I want to say in relation to the whole issue about vocation, I mean, this could be an entire show, to be quite honest with you. It always ceases to amaze me, and I've mentioned this on the program before. I don't know why it is that we as a society of the world, we seem to be so caught up in the cash, into the money, that it doesn't really even make sense to me. Like, let's just walk through it for a second. Have you noticed that, who do we admire, Mr. Harris? Do we admire the guy that can sit and calculate and build a Lamborghini, or the guy who purchases it? Yeah.
Honestly, I admire both. The
majority of the world is KSing the guy who buys it.
Yes.
And quite honestly, I don't understand that. We as a world, we don't seem to appreciate this intellectualism, the skills. And if we start from the beginning of history with a guy that was on a farm, okay? Mm-hmm. And I've made this discussion. Let's just picture for a moment. A guy's on a farm, and someone comes up and says, I'd like to get all your goats and your cows, etc., and here's a yellow rock. I mean, really, what do you think happened there? Mm-hmm. It had to be something of, what is the utility of this yellow rock? Because I don't see how this is going to help me. And we have now transposed from the point that the most important person in the room is not the guy that owned the goats. Mm-hmm. It's the one who's counting it, apparently. I mean, it's just weird. It's a discussion I would love to have, and if I can get time to prep for it. But I think there's just this over concern about cash. Ellio owns apartments, but the apartments, you got two Ellios, one who owned apartments and one who sold the apartments and got $2.5 million in cash in the bank. I like the one with $2.5 million with cash in the bank. It's something that we really need to think about. But that said, on the specifics of what you've just read, I think looking at the trades, the skills, all of these things to me are absolutely important. You can build a house, but you need someone to build that house. Or you can buy a house, but you need someone to build it. You need someone that can do the roofing. You need someone that can deal with your ACs and a myriad of different things. And I think it's lacking in this country. One of the largest areas of work permits, I think you either alluded to this or just expressly stated it, is construction. Mm-hmm. And you go on a construction site, you can very seldom see Caymanians. I did see one, by the way, at least on one site that I went. I was super impressed. But you don't get to see a lot of Caymanians in either of these industries. And myself, for one, I love the idea of trades. I love skills. I love the idea of the arts, coming up with creative ideas. And if you're really going to do a good job, you have to have a lot of skills, physical strength too, but you have to have a lot of skills, and you have to be a thinker if you're really going to be good at that job. And it's something that I genuinely admire, and why we seem to be, as a world, a society, and a country, that all we seem to be is super impressed. It doesn't matter what you're doing, as long as you're making lots of cash.
Yes.
That just bothers me, because cash doesn't really mean that much to me. Sorry, not impressed. Yes. I'd rather be sitting chatting with someone that I feel has a brain, some real insight, maybe thinking about how to make the world a better place, than simply saying, look, I have a couple $1 million in the bank. Whether Poppy gave it to me or whether I made it, that money doesn't really impress me. So, yeah, kudos to them for taking on the trades. It's definitely something that we need, and I encourage it.
I just remembered the program, which for whatever reason, the name escaped me. I am getting older. Whilst I'm getting older and Ellio's getting prettier, I'm definitely getting older. It was the Social Worker Associate degree program that was launched by the University College back in 2018. Certainly not to put too fine a point on it, but I did have a hand to play in the development of those programs, or the introduction of those programs, as my in my role and responsibility as Parliamentary Secretary for Community Affairs. At the time, it was noted that the relevant organization, the Needs Assessment Unit, for example, but the other departments within government that address concerns, whether it be to those persons with mental illness, those persons perhaps in the elderly category, those persons who are of the single-parent variety, that the one common denominator in addressing those needs are the human element of the social worker, but a qualified social worker who obviously understands the dynamics attached to these various life challenges and goes about seeking to address it. And at the time, the government noted an absence of qualified Caymanian, I quote, Caymanian social workers. It's always easy to bring in foreigners. And again, in the absence of Caymanians, that's what we have to do. But we acknowledged that there was a gap in the vocational skills sets that was available at the University College. And as a result, in 2018, the University College of the Cayman Islands introduced the Social Work Associate's degree program, which, again, I commend. It was a pleasure to be involved with it for a time. But again, whether it be vocational skill sets that prepare students to enter the labor force, certainly the University College continues to lead in that endeavor, and I just want to say congratulations to them. Also, I remembered who is now at the helm of the University College, at least in a temporary position.
Livingston?
Yes, Professor Dr. Livingston Smith, who is also at one time a very good friend, someone that we have collaborated with in the past, and I can't really think of a better person to take over the reins for it, even if it is in an acting capacity. But he certainly would get my vote for the permanent position.
He's definitely a wonderful person, awesome guy. Happy for him there.
Yes,
and hopefully he'll find a spot, sink in, dig in, and become even more comfortable in it. But let me just say again, I think that first of all, I would encourage you not to beat yourself up because you didn't remember.
I remembered it when I first thought of it, but when it came down to translating it out of my mouth, for whatever reason, the two were not communicating.
It could be age, Austin, but not necessarily. We all get slips like that, so don't worry about it.
Kind, my friend. Thank you so very much for that. Yeah, social worker program. For whatever reason, I couldn't find those two words, social and worker, to combine them together. I knew what I was thinking, but I just couldn't find the words to explain it.
But I say that, picture for a moment, and I've thought about things like this in relation specifically to health, and also when you talk about tourism, you can think also about, in this particular case, education. Where's the real marketing, right? Why am I not able to ride along the highway? For example, you'll see sometimes the little flags that are on the various poles.
Yes.
Where are some of those, for example, that's encouraging me as a citizen to eat healthy? Where are some of those flags that's encouraging persons about trade and we need this and we need that? There's a lot of young persons out there, malleable minds, ready to get into some sort of a direction. They're just looking.
Yes.
Where am I going to go? This is something I think that doesn't cost much, but the government can do things like that to help influence and those young minds to be able to say, maybe I am going to go into that industry. Because we're talking not just about entering into industry, but even a case of real ownership into some of those businesses. These are some of the things that are easy for Caymanians to get into and own something. Construction companies and again, those are broken up into a million different sections, right?
Yes.
So lots of opportunities there. And again, we have Mr. Michael Miles, who's in charge of labor. I can't say that I know everything about that gentleman. I almost said young man. But I know he did the skate park there. He had the vocational stuff.
Inspire Cayman.
He was doing vocational training. So I have a lot of hope in him. I'm glad he's elected. And I'm hoping that he'll be able to do things like that. Really pick it up now that he has that scepter or mantle, whatever, and just really run with it and make something of it, because I think we have so much opportunities there.
Yes,
I really want to encourage him.
I absolutely agree with you. And certainly when the conversation comes up that, we need, quote unquote, a vocational training center in the Cayman Islands, listen, we don't need to go out and invest and build a purpose-built vocational school. We've got some private sector elements involved. I think of the Superior Auto program that's been in place for a number of years, providing, I think, truly a valuable, almost turnkey program on how to go from, not knowing a thing about auto mechanics to basically ending that program, potentially able to walk into a job. So kudos to the Superior Auto program. We think of the number of vocational programs that are still contained within the high school system. Obviously, more is needed. And since we seem to be hell-bent on building new infrastructure, new buildings, hopefully we can use some of those existing facilities to expand on those vocational offerings. But then, of course, as we have just been talking about, the University College also exists as an institute of learning where these programs for vocational training can be included with the traditional sciences, math, English, and so on, history. But it is important, and certainly what better place for vocational training to take place than from within the education system itself. We do have 2 WhatsApp text messages with about 4 minutes remaining before we have to pause and take a break. The first one takes us back to the first caller's comment on cruise tourism. It says, "Good afternoon, gentlemen. I want to take the time to try to explain that very few of our current attractions will be able to stay open without the cruise tourism numbers they used to receive. As cruise continues to dwindle, it will get more and more difficult to keep their doors open for stayover and locals alike." Now, I think this is a valuable...
I think someone was trying to call in.
Well, they're not now, but if they will try again, I'll be happy to answer it when they do. But certainly the point that was made that things like the Turtle Center, obviously heavily dependent on cruise arrivals, things like Stingray City charters, those are also highly dependent on cruise numbers, because the simple fact is the stayover visitor either aren't taking full advantage, or, if you're a stayover visitor and both of these attractions, people say, well, you've done it once, you've, pretty much, done all that you need, so you don't need to repeat that visit. Again, I disagree. I think the Turtle Center has certainly improved itself in terms of an attraction zone. Yeah, the turtles are one aspect of it, but their wildlife interaction, their culinary opportunities, the swimming pool that, mimics a reef, and as well as the water slides, all of that are sort of weekend getaways that you could do with the family, particularly if you have young kids. I kind of miss the days when my son was young enough to find those things cool, because as a parent, you struggle. What am I going to do to keep this young man busy? Well, there were places like the Turtle Center that we used to visit quite often. And I just think that...
Well, I can put on my Turtle Center cap for a moment as chairman there and say that, there's a lot of different things that's happening to try to make sure that we can appeal more to stayover visitors, and most importantly, if you like, locals.
Yes.
Again, Mr. Raymond Hayes, who's the Deputy Chief Executive Officer, just a couple of weeks ago was showing me now they've got the helmets that you can put on that allows you to be pushed down to the bottom of the little ocean area there, and you can walk, right?
Oh, very cool.
I mean, you've seen that stuff when you were a kid.
Very cool.
And you can just really look around and see all the fish and everything. It's a wonderful attraction. Would encourage person to have a look at it. Again, also trying to organize events, even in this particular case, actually getting a zip line down there as well.
Nice.
So it's all the things that's going to continue to improve.
Indeed. But to the writer's point, a lot of these attractions undoubtedly depend on the volumes associated with cruise tourism to keep their doors open. And certainly they are also amongst those anticipated to suffer. And another contributor to WhatsApp, lending itself back to our traffic report segment, the writer says, "I'm not usually this late in providing you updates in terms of your evening traffic, but the bypass just after you get on it from the Randike Gardens roundabout is a virtual parking lot headed east. Not quite sure what the reason is, but traffic is bumper to bumper on the way home headed to the eastern districts, including Prospect. So if you're in traffic, again, it's just a typical Tuesday evening. It is 28 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock. The phone lines remain open at 745-2626. I would encourage the caller that my colleague spoke of, who tried to call in earlier, to give us a call in about 4 minutes, which is the length of this next break. But keep it locked. There'll be more Straight Talk still to come on Bobo 103.1 FM.
More Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio coming up. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Bobo 103.1.
At Polar Bear Air Conditioning, we believe in helping you to avoid costly mistakes and replacements. That's why we offer a quarterly maintenance program at a discounted price. You'll receive a 10% discount on all repairs, accessories, and services. Priority front-of-the-line customer status, reminders of your service, and no overtime rate for after-hours calls. Why not save money and avoid hassle with Polar Bear Air Conditioning? Need service now? Book our AC special for just $99. Book the next available technician at polarbear.ky. That's polarbear.ky.
With you in mind, we have your style. Find what you need down every aisle. You want saving, selection, and quality. That's why we're your home store. The way to make a home. The way to make a home.
Looking for TVs, electronics, sound systems, speakers, gaming consoles, games, and smart home gadgets? Shop Cost You Less.
Looking for housewares, small appliances, fans, mini fridges, and cooling? Shop Cost You Less.
Looking for baby supplies, toys and games, pet supplies, cleaning supplies, and auto supplies? Shop Cost You Less.
Looking for quality produce, grass-fed meats, and groceries? You guessed it. Shop Cost You Less.
Cost You Less is your destination for everything you need on island. Cost You Less. Everyday low prices on items that matter to you.
It's trivia every Wednesday from 7 o'clock at Sandbar on the Georgetown waterfront. Your chance to win some fantastic prizes in our free-to-enter Trivia Madness. Great offers on beer buckets, margaritas, and a delicious menu served throughout the evening. Grab your pals and get along to Sandbar every Wednesday from 7 o'clock for the most fun you can have with your clothes on. Are we ready?
Yes, Marty!
Then let's do this. Trivia, Sandbar, 7 o'clock, Wednesday. See you there.
The Office Hero. To claim this title, you have to make an exceedingly wise decision. Do something that benefits staff, impresses clients, all while keeping expenses low. Are you ready to be the Office Hero? Here's what to do. Call Hughes Cleaning Service. Hughes Cleaning Service will make your office shine and you a hero. Dusting, vacuuming, windows, sanitizing, and more. Hughes expert cleaners will make your office a healthy, immaculate, impressive workspace. Call 949-0734. Visit hughes-janitorial.com. Hughes, you get more than clean.
When it comes to weekly meal prep, I trust Kirk Market to provide the best value for quality proteins. The butchers at Kirk Market are super helpful. They always slice my steaks perfectly. Kirk Market has everything I need for healthy and flavorful protein-packed meals. From lean cuts of CAB choice beef, tender CAB prime beef, the juiciest pork, and all-natural hormone-free poultry, to their seafood section with everything from fresh local snapper to omega-3 rich salmon. I choose Kirk Market for the highest quality proteins to support my healthy lifestyle. Kirk Market. Eat well, live well, and discover a world of choice.
Across Cayman on FM, online, and on your smart speaker. This is Bobo 103.1, powered by Health Services Authority, committed to caring for you. The views and opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
And welcome back, man, to more Straight Talk here on Bobo 103.1 FM, where the time in studios now 33 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock. And the phone lines continue to be open on this Open Mic Tuesday. The number to call, 745-2626 is the number in studios. or you can take advantage of our WhatsApp number, 928-2562. And from there, you can either share a WhatsApp audio note or a traditional WhatsApp text message. We're your host, Ellio Solomon, myself, Austin Harris. And in the absence of, obviously, your contributions, we, as we say, always have something we want to talk about. Ellio, you wanted to, again, I guess, touch on an issue that was at one time raised yesterday in our conversations. I give you the floor once again.
Yeah, well, it'll be brief. But yesterday you raised the issue about the UK raising the standard, if you like, of the English speaking skills that are required in order to work in the UK. And I think you mentioned it was going to be raised to the A level.
Yes, that's what was included in the UK's The Standard newspaper under the UK immigration reform plans under the new Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer.
Right. Now, unless the A-level standard has somewhat been watered down that I'm unaware of, which is not entirely impossible, I would say that, the little bit that I'm gathered, obviously he's a person that's very firm now against all of the immigration, and that might very well be an effort, amongst other things, to really significantly reduce the foreign nationals that would be coming into the UK.
Mm-hmm.
And I just mentioned before as we were parting the program yesterday and got caught by the bell, that, I definitely think, and I just wanted to make sure that I express a little bit of my opinion, is that I want to see that persons that are in the country can be getting a little bit clear on the English. I think some persons are not necessarily that clear, and that also creates opportunities for education, etc. But I wouldn't necessarily think off the top of my head that carrying it to an A level, for example, in Cayman is going to be what we should be doing. I would like to believe that anywhere near a good O level is sufficient. I just think you have some people that I'm not sure what level it is. It's just not the correct level as far as I'm concerned. I mean, people really having difficulties understanding some very basic things. And I think that offers some challenges. But I believe that diversity is good. I think there's an opportunity for Caymanians to learn from others and others to learn from us. I've always stated that even in terms of our education program, you might very well find that allowing persons to be able to learn about those, say, top 3 or 5 cultures within the Cayman Islands would be good. I think there's some real benefits to be derived from that. I just want to make sure that in terms of the workplace, that you have the level of competences that people can communicate. Especially, you can see this becomes even more important when you're in an environment of, say, where safety is at risk, right?
Yes.
Like I was trying to tell you, there was a block falling.
That's right. You needed to move.
But it doesn't matter now.
It doesn't matter now. The coconut has already fallen on your head.
Whereas, if I'm in the kitchen and trying to explain to you what a teaspoon is, we still have time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And that's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
It depends, obviously, on the type of work that you're doing. Having a person as a handicapped child, again, this is also something very important. No, I didn't say 3 pills. Okay?
Yes.
That's not what I said.
No, indeed.
You gave her 3 of the pills? Okay, so you get my point. I think it's just very important that people be able to have those competencies, but not necessarily carrying it to the extreme of the A level. Going straight to the phone lines. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening,
Solomon and Mr. Harris. How you doing? This is Deputy Leader of Opposition, Kenneth Bryan. How you doing?
Good to hear you.
Hello,
Good to hear
Mr.
from
Bryan. How are you? Thank you for your call. I think it's the first time we're hearing from you since the election.
And I should say publicly, congratulations to you on your win. It was a landslide, but we're not really surprised there.
Yes.
But either way, great job, sir.
Thank you very much. And before I get started, I just want to say thank you so much to your listening audience, and particularly that to the Georgetown Central constituency for re-electing me again. It's an honor to be their voice for another 4 years.
Okay.
The purpose of the call today is, communication with the people of the Cayman Islands, residents and Caymanians alike, is going to be an essential part of the next 4 years for myself and the progressives. And I would like to start to initiate that regular program visitation to your program, because I think street talk is essential. I think there could have been a lot more on your show throughout the campaign, but I must say that my head was all over the place for the campaign. But we're officially going to be on another local radio show, government-owned, on Friday. But I want, as I was thinking of that, I said I want to also make sure that I'm on your show as well, hopefully on a weekly basis, that could give the necessary viewpoints of where we're at, what we're going to be focusing on, and that people can rely on expectation and that communication and discussion on your show. Hopefully,
we appreciate that.
And we would certainly welcome it. Mr. Bryan, I would just encourage you, as you know, to perhaps maybe reach out to us offline and we can work towards facilitating that. But we absolutely would welcome a weekly, presentation by the opposition as we move forward, because, again, a healthy democracy consists of two very important parts, the government and the opposition. And certainly I'm delighted that you're the first to obviously reach out and recognize that.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That's the main point of calling in today. But I'm happy to answer any questions. If there is any, if there's none, that's fine too. I'll just sit back and enjoy your show as I always do.
All right, sir. Well, I don't have any individual questions for you right now. We're still waiting, of course, for the government to outline what their plans are, which obviously will give not only you but us some degree of a direction for the next 4 years. But again, we look forward to chatting offline and making and finding a place for the opposition on a weekly basis on this.
But I do have a question. I imagine possibly the opposition might be making announcements, but let me ask. Can we expect that maybe the opposition is going to declare who their particular shadow ministers are in terms of who will be guarding the respective government ministers?
Correct. Interestingly enough, we had a caucus this morning, and those allocations, now that the government has formally put together who will be responsible for what, and so we're examining where the best synergies are based on experience, based on background, and based on want as well. You want somebody to be a shadow minister to something that hopefully one day they may become the minister for it. So we will announce that hopefully by next week, as we're all taking homework home to assess that and then come back together. So that hopefully answers your question in respect to that. Maybe by the time we come on the show, maybe we can announce it first time there. That could potentially
well, wouldn't that be awesome?
That would be terrific.
Thank you.
So there was one thing I totally forgot that I think I would like to potentially hear your input. I'll leave you guys on the show with it, but something that always troubles me, and I called on another local show, a radio station that was owned by the government. The importance of making sure that those persons who were not successful get back to normalcy, and particularly employment. I think that we have a culture here in Cayman, sadly, why so many people stay away from politics outside of the picking on you and going through every bit of your personal life and everything else, which is part of the process. So I'm not complaining about it, but sometimes it goes too far. But also, if you lose and you are not with the government, or even when you're with the government, it's so hard for you to find employment again afterwards.
Right.
Because there's such a small jurisdiction, and God forbid, you don't want to be associated with this or that. And that's worrying. And I would even support the people who ran against me, like one in particular, Mr. Ramon, who works for Monetary Authority. I think there should be no reason why he shouldn't be able to go back to his post, as long as it's not been filled by another Caymanian. Because, I mean, we had so many people who ran for office. It's a very noble exercise. And I think we should have a culture of trying to encourage people, our companies and government civil service, to allow them to go back in their positions if it's not filled. And I slightly doubt it will be filled within a 2-month period.
Yeah.
Because what's the benefit of doing that? I mean, a lot of people don't want to run for politics because of that fear, and it limits our selection process as a society. So I would encourage government, if they're listening, civil service particularly, to consider. I think about Dwayne Sterling, who was on another local radio station, who no longer has a job, and that hurts me. And Donna Bush, there are many people, and I'm not talking about only people who ran with my party, but every other, even independents and other parties. We've got to make sure that people are not feeling like God. The most noble thing in the world has now become the worst thing in their life.
Right.
The banks are going to come running for their money very soon, and it affects lives. So I support publicly. If there's any businesses listening, think about those great qualities that you saw throughout the campaign, and they're good people who can be great assets to your companies. we've got to change the culture of that. And it's been something I've been advocating for 3 terms now, and I'll continue that, because I think politics has to stop at some point.
Yep.
And now the politics is over. The government is formed. The opposition is formed. Those people who ran, just get them back on their feet.
Correct.
And let's move on with the country and doing our job, because we're all in this together, no matter how it's checked. I wish this government the best ever, because when they win, my people win, and that's all I'm in this for. So I'll leave you there, because I really wish that we can change the culture and everybody who ran for office can get back a job so they can take care of themselves and their livelihoods and their families.
Well, thank you very much for that, Mr. Brian.
Yes, sir, and thank you for taking the time to call. And as I said, we look forward to our continued follow-up that will lead to getting the opposition as a regular fixture on our program.
You'll be hearing from me within the next 14 hours, probably first thing in the morning.
All right.
We can talk.
Excellent.
All right, God bless.
Look forward to it. Thank you.
I want to commend him for
Leader
that.
of the opposition, Honorable Kenneth Bryan there.
Deputy Leader, absolutely. I want to commend him for that. I mean, you remember we chatted a little bit about that on the talk show a few days ago, and I think Austin and I can attest to the challenges of running and losing. And yes. I mentioned then, and I mentioned again, that if you think losing the election is bad, try a couple of years of victimization with people deliberately going out of their way to make sure that not just leaving you, not the normal challenges of trying to get reemployed.
Yes.
People deliberately who are in power trying to make sure you don't get that employment.
Yes.
And it's good to see that I almost said the deputy premier.
Almost.
That the deputy leader of the opposition is out there saying, we don't want that to happen. Of course, he mentioned some specifics on the civil service job, and I think it's a good place to start because they're a big employer of Caymanians, number one,
yes.
and it should be a role model.
Yeah.
And there's absolutely no reason, in my opinion, why Donna Bush can't get her job back or shouldn't get her job back.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing with Sterling Dween.
Mm-hmm.
And he talked about, again, Mr. Anthony Ramon.
Yeah.
And again, hopefully the same thing will happen in relation to those persons that were more so in the private sector. So again, commend him. We're looking forward. You heard it from Mr. Bryan as well, that the opposition will be reaching out to us in terms of coming here on the program. And this is important. In Parliament, we always have the saying that the government will have their way, but the opposition should always have their say. So we'll make sure that they have a mic and they can have their say as well, keeping us informed. He's also talked about getting the shadow ministers in place. And for clarity on that, if you have, one minister, let's say the premier is the premier, but he's also a minister of financial services. So the opposition would try to mirror that and have a person that fits and perhaps has a genuine interest in being Minister of Financial Services, and he or she would keep a close eye on what the Premier, in terms of his Ministry of Financial Services, is doing. Again, hopefully offering up the constructive criticisms as well as being able to support the things that he or she believes is good for the country. So that's, generally speaking, the role of the shadow ministers, and we're most likely, according to Mr. Bryan, be hearing about that next week, most likely. Sounds great.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I just want to echo the same sentiments as it relates to, obviously, alternative employment for those politicians or those persons who threw their hat into the political arena to seek elected office. Whether you were a politician or just simply participated in the election process, Mr. Bryan raises a very relevant fact that those persons are now considered to be PEPs, politically exposed persons, is the phrase that certainly private sector likes to use as an excuse, and therefore perhaps are resistant to employing such individuals under, again, the reasoning behind it truly boggles the mind. On the one hand, these individuals were at one point in time good enough to represent the people of the Cayman Islands, all of us, but then they get unelected or they're not successful, and again, they can't be trusted to flip burgers, for example. It just is an easy example. This notion of politically exposed person that somehow you employ an ex-politician and because of their former influence, if they don't get their way or they're unhappy in the job, that somehow they will use their political influence to cause harm or bring damage to that organization is, it doesn't even pass the smell test. It's not even a legitimate excuse. We're talking about honorable persons who obviously, had the interest and love of country to say, you know what, I don't want to be a part of the problem. I don't want to continue to complain about what's broken in this country. I want to put myself forward as perhaps someone who can bring about solutions for all of us. We should admire those persons. And certainly on the job front, everyone should be entitled to earn a living by the sweat of their brow, or their academic skills or otherwise. But one sector of society that continues, and I'm glad you used the word because it is the right word, that continues to be victimized are persons, particularly those who at one time were elected but got unelected, certainly find extreme difficulty in finding re-employment. And there are a myriad of reasons why that is, but none of them are legitimate in my mind. And hopefully, I certainly agree with Mr. Bryan that we evolve past that thinking, because it is very much caveman sort of. You know.
If you can tell me how much time we have left there.
9 minutes.
9 minutes. So just really quickly to touch on that a little bit. Here are some of the things that are stated against the persons who have run for office. So if we look at the civil servants for a moment, it would be a case of saying that you're supposed to be a neutral person. And that neutrality says I'm not with any one party or another. I'm not with any one particular candidate or another. And so therefore, you can now do your job, so that whatever government comes into office, if they say that they want the ship to head to the northwest, you're going to just be able to tell them, if anything, how best to do it, but you're not going to be fighting against them. And that should not just be, as we would say, done, but perceived to be being done. And the concern general would be, oh, well, if you ran for office, well, then you're not going to have that neutrality. And therefore, the government, at least from the perception perspective, says you should not be there. I believe that particularly where you have civil servants, unless there's been something proven otherwise, the person, in my humble opinion, would have shown their competences and their ability to be able to keep a neutral position and to serve whatever elected government comes in to the civil service. And I don't think that has changed simply because they decided that they wanted to appeal to this noble cause of being able to represent the people of their country. They can't possibly. Why should they be punished for that? I think the person should be allowed to go back to their employment. And if anything, yes, of course, you keep an eye on them like everything else. And if there is that issue of neutrality, as it would be done with any other civil servant, then it should be dealt with. But in the absence of something like that, give them back the employment. In relation to the private sector, again, a lot of private sector companies don't want to hire persons who ran for office. And they may not say it, but part of the reason is, a lot of companies say, hey, I don't want you ran against the government. And no, this was a legitimate concern. I can tell you, and I'll tell you why. But it was a legitimate concern that if you work in the private sector and there is this government member who is going to say, oh, you got so-and-so working for you. Well, we can see what happened to your permits and your advertisement, and the list goes on. And I am living proof that happened, or at least happened. On many occasions, unfortunately. So when you have that level of victimization being used against the individual and the company potentially, well, you can see why that is an issue. And that only speaks to the fact that all the more reason why this country needs to have something very clear. I know there's some scattered pieces of information in specific pieces of legislation, but we need something very clear, identified and specific, that deals with politicians who are going to try to victimize persons that they see as their political opponents or enemies. There needs to be a specific piece of legislation with that. By the way, I noted, for example, and again, I say this in the greatest of respect, in defense of those persons who ran for office and are now talking about possibly going back to their job. I noticed that the premier, if I got it right in his speech, stated that his wife is a civil servant.
Yes.
And I would like to believe that despite the fact that his wife is a civil servant and he's the premier, she can still be neutral and do her job competently. Mm-hmm. And I believe the premier would agree with that. And if the premier does agree with that, I think the same opportunity should be given to those persons who ran for office. And again, off the top of my head, I might be missing one. And if I am, please forgive me. Persons like Ms. Donovan Bush, Mr. Anthony Ramon, the Sterling Dwayne e-banks, all of those persons should be given an equal opportunity to be able to hold the jobs that they held, and thank them very much for throwing their hats in the ring to do one of the most awesome jobs and one of the greatest sacrifices you could make, because trust me, it's a sacrifice, to run for office and to represent the people of this country.
Absolutely. Echo those sentiments and support those sentiments 100%. 53 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock is the time in studios, giving us just under 5 minutes before we have to pause and take a short commercial break, check in with the BBC top of the hour news. But the phone lines remain open all the way until 6:30. The number to call, 745-2626 is the number in studios if you want to let your voice be heard as part of our ongoing conversation today. By all means, we welcome you to do so. Otherwise, you can reach out to us on our version of the 1-800 number, that being, of course, our WhatsApp line, by dialing 928-2562, and from there, either sending us a traditional WhatsApp text message or sending us a WhatsApp audio note. In either event, we will certainly share your views, comments, and opinions live whilst we are on the air. And someone just shared, because we were having a conversation about, obviously, the vocational opportunities that are taking place at the University College of the Cayman Islands. We added to that the vocational opportunities that already exist in the private sector as well as at the high school level. I was shared with a flyer for the Workforce Opportunities and Residency Cayman, or WORK. They are hosting another paid summer internship program that is being extended to Caymanian college students or recent college graduates. They can gain hands-on experience and grow their professional network by participating in the WORK summer internship program. Opportunities exist in information technology or IT, business, marketing, accounting, and finance, in the vocational trades of mechanics, HVAC, plumbing, and electrical, as well as tourism. In order to obviously make applications, the applicants must be at least 17 years of age, provide a resume, proof of Caymanian status, complete the application form, and proof for either completion of or ongoing academic studies. Persons can email work.training, work.training@gov.ky, or simply call 945-9672. Applications will be open as of yesterday, the 12th of May, and run until the 25th of May, and will close at midnight approximately on the 25th of May. So it is the Work Paid Summer Internship Program, which runs from the 1st of July until the 31st of August of this year.
Sounds
so
good.
It's a good opportunity, particularly for moms and dads, if you're obviously getting ready to receive your young adults. I can't even call them young people anymore. Young adults who are preparing to come home for the summer. Obviously, hopefully, some of them have already begun efforts in finding those all-important summer jobs to, again, complement their academic studies. But perhaps you may wish to add this to your list of options should those private sector applications prove.
If we have time before the break, I'd like to just encourage the WRC to please reach out to us so we can see if we can get you here in the studio and discuss this. It sounds like a good program. It should be properly ventilated and marketed as much as possible.
Yes.
So please reach out to us. Again, the number here in the studio, if you want to send us a text, 928-2562. But, get in touch with us.
Yes, indeed. Again, just sort of with a minute and 25 seconds remaining, really just an opportunity to recap what we have been talking about. Of course, the conversation started off in the cruise direction. And aside from the first caller of the program and one or two text message, we really haven't had much, take up on that conversation. But as always, it's still on the table. We talked about complimenting and commending the University College of the Cayman Islands for, again, advancing vocational studies as part of their ongoing curriculum. And, of course, we've talked a little bit about the English language test here in the Cayman Islands, using the example of what is happening in the UK as part of their immigration reform. Presently in the UK, an English language test is required of all immigrants coming into the UK. Presently, they require a GCSE level or a high school level understanding of English, but their immigration reform plan will seek to have it improved to as much as an A-level understanding of English, if English is in fact a second or third language for you. But at 58 now, 59 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock, we do have to pause, check in with the top of the hour news brought to you by the BBC, but there'll still be more Straight Talk coming up next.
Bobo.
Welcome to our newsroom here in central London. We place ourselves here at a little desk right in the thick of things.
OS from the BBC.
We can catch the very latest news from our colleagues, not just in this enormous room, but also from our colleagues around the world.
I'm in the room where they're treating children.
This is a combat zone.
The situation after the typhoon is very complicated.
It was a very tense situation. OS from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
BBC News.
BBC News. World news from the BBC.
Violent clashes.
Thick black smoke.
A tremendous legal victory.
Crucial elections.
Destructive winds.
A search and recovery operation.
A race against time.
An imminent threat. Flying a drone over a rival team's training session.
Whatever is happening, wherever it's happening, catch up with the latest news bulletins from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
The BBC's From Our Own Correspondent.
In today's Russia, no one is allowed anywhere near the political stage if they pose a serious challenge to Vladimir Putin.
Stories and reflections from our reporters around the world.
There is a major sense of insecurity here.
More people are coming in from Sudan every day.
From Our Own Correspondent from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM. This is Bobo 103.1, powered by Health Services Authority.
At Health Services Authority, they are committed to caring for you. They are Cayman's largest and longest-standing healthcare provider, offering the most comprehensive range of inpatient, outpatient, and public health services at 9 different locations across all 3 islands.
Across Cayman on 103.1 FM, online, and on your smart speaker. The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo 103.1.
BBC News with Sue Montgomery. President Trump, on a tour of Arab Gulf states, has announced that the United States is lifting sanctions on Syria. The foreign minister hailed the decision as a turning point. Syrians have been celebrating on the streets of the capital, Damascus. The sanctions had been imposed when the ousted former president Bashar al-Assad was still in power. Here's Lina Sinjab.
Many businesses and international donors have wanted to make deals but were stopped by the U.S. sanctions. It is a sigh of relief for Syrians inside the country who want to run businesses as normal, but also the millions stranded as refugees who have nowhere to come back to as their homes have been destroyed by Assad's bombardment. Rebuilding Syria needs international support, and now it will be easier to get moving.
A big Israeli airstrike on a hospital compound in southern Gaza has killed a large number of people. The Hamas-run Civil Defense Agency said at least 28 died in the multiple blasts at the European hospital in Khan Yunis. Dr. Tom Potokar was inside the building at the time.
There was 6 enormous explosions, one after the other, directly hitting the inside of the hospital compound. Down the main corridor, there was a lot of structural damage, cracks in the walls, parts of the ceiling come down, masonry on the floor. And then outside, again, there's a bus that has been completely upended with a huge crater as well.
According to the Israeli military, numerous steps were taken to minimize civilian casualties. It said the site was a Hamas command center. The UN aid chief has criticised Israel's proposed plan for aid distribution in Gaza, calling it a deliberate distraction from continued violence and displacement. Tom Fletcher told the UN Security Council that no food, water, medicine or tents had entered Gaza for over 10 weeks. Britain's ambassador to the UN, Barbara Woodward, said civilian lives should not be put in the balance in the pursuit of military goals.
Blocking aid as a pressure lever is unacceptable. And last week, the Israeli Security Cabinet approved plans to expand its military operations in Gaza. We strongly oppose both these actions, which will add to Palestinian suffering while doing nothing to serve the long-term interests of peace and security in the region.
Israel says it will not allow supplies in until Hamas releases all remaining hostages. Pakistan has ordered an Indian diplomat to leave the country, declaring them persona non grata. Officials in Islamabad say the staff member at the Indian High Commission was involved in activities not in line with their diplomatic role. BBC News. Mali's military ruler has dissolved all political parties and organisations less than a week after suspending them. The decree was read out in state TV. Since last year, the authorities have intensified a crackdown on political activity. Mali's military ruler, General Assimi Goïta, has reneged on pledges to hold elections. He's now due to stay in power for at least another 5 years. The American film director Quentin Tarantino has officially kicked off this year's Cannes Film Festival, one of the biggest events in the film world. At the opening ceremony, the veteran actor Robert De Niro was honoured for his career. He used his moment on stage to criticise President Trump for slashing arts funding, calling him a Philistine.
He has cut funding and support to the arts, humanities, and education. And now he has announced a 100% tariff on films produced outside the U.S. Let that sink in for a minute. You can't put a price on creativity, but apparently you can put a tariff on it. Of course, this is unacceptable. All these attacks are unacceptable.
The first of two semi-final nights in the Eurovision Song Contest has taken place in the Swiss city of Basel. 15 countries have competed for 10 of the places in Saturday's grand final. They ranged from a rib-shaking electro-pulse number his single term in office, he gave away much of his salary and continued to live in a small farmhouse outside the capital, Montevideo. He spent more than a decade in jail from the 1970s for his leading role in a left-wing guerrilla group. BBC News.
Opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
And welcome back, K-Man, to more Straight Talk here on Bobo 103.1 FM on your radio dial. We're your hosts, Ellio Solomon and myself, Austin Harris, as the phone lines remain to be open at 745-2626. If you have a comment, an opinion, a question that you certainly would like to ask us in person, so to speak, then by all means, pick up the phone, give us a call. That number again, 745-2626, or you can reach out to us on our WhatsApp line by dialing 928-2562, and from there you can either share a WhatsApp audio note or a traditional WhatsApp text message. Either way, we will receive your comments and share them live on air as part of our ongoing conversation. Reminding you that Straight Talk airs every weekday evening from 4:30 to 6:30 here on Bobo 103.1 FM, but also simulcast live over YouTube, Instagram, and on Facebook. With 7 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock, giving us just over 21 minutes before we have to wrap it up for the day. Ellio, is there anything you want to kick us off with, or should you leave that to me?
Yeah, I'll leave it to you.
All right. Well, just, I think from the standpoint of public service, first of all, during the break, I happened to take a peek outside the window. just to see what's happening outside. It looks like the rain.
I'll tell you what, there's no windows in this studio.
There's no windows in this
Let's be
studio.
clear on that.
Yeah, so one has to walk out of this studio and to look at the free world. Here we're sort of in a holding tank of our own. Some people would call it the hole, but hey, I like it. It's a hole in the wall that's all ours. But anyway, I looked outside the window, and as the sun begins to set, looks like the rain continues to drip drop, albeit a little bit. The forecast for tonight called for 30% chance of showers throughout the evening. Tomorrow, at least promising to be cooler. No indication of any rain tomorrow, but as always, it doesn't hurt to pack an umbrella because as we head closer to the month of June, obviously as the rainy season begins, we can always expect an afternoon shower or two to prop up without warning. And certainly, from my standpoint anyway, who is not a sun seeker, we welcome that rain is a good thing.
So what color was the sunset, Mr. Harris? Or is it looking like?
We were here. Well, I don't know. I don't know.
I heard you with that one about which one was fair weather for the... How did that go again?
Yes, red sky at night, sailors delight. Red sky in the morning, sailors take warning.
I can't keep propping you with these things, Austin.
I learned that from my father.
A good one. Yeah.
My father used to say that as a former sailor himself, Navy man, certainly merchant mariner. He used to tell us that all the time when we would go fishing as children.
Give it to us again.
Red sky at night, sailors delight.
Sailors delight.
Red sky in the morning, sailors take warning.
Pause. So does that mean that if it's red sky at night, you're going to have
fair weather
the following day?
The following night and the following day.
Okay.
Unless there is also a continuation of red sky in the morning. If there's a red sky in the morning, then you can expect inclement weather, or particularly on the seas, at the very least, some rough weather on the horizon.
All right. One last time. Say it now.
Red sky at night, sailors delight.
Yeah.
Red sky in the morning, sailors take warning.
Yeah, I always try to monitor stuff like that. I know there's one that I'm sitting in my apartment. Sometimes the sky it's gold.
Mm-hmm.
Ever notice that? It's like it's like a yellow all over.
Yes, those are beautiful evenings.
Yeah, it's a weird one.
Beautiful evenings when the sun sets just so, and of course it lights up the entire sky to a bit of an orange golden hue. What I think is even more gorgeous, and I saw it last night, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe it could have been early this morning when I woke up at dark 30, is when you have like a cloud-filled sky, but they're in the individual pockets. It looks like popcorn in the sky with gaps in between the clouds, but spread off over the entire sky. I think that's beautiful, particularly at the sunset time when again you have the background is that orange golden hue and then spots of clouds. When I wake up in the morning and sometimes when I go to the beach, I'm reminded to say my thanks to God that we have the opportunity to call the Cayman Islands home, the opportunity to see God's panoramic, beautiful views of nature, our opportunity to, when we get a little hot, to take a dip in the water. I'm reminded of persons who live in cities and otherwise concrete jungles that don't have this privilege.
Yeah.
And sometimes, we can, I guess, miss the forest for the trees and forget the little blessings that we have. But I'm reminded often to give thanks for where we get to grow up.
Yeah.
Because as bad as or as challenging as life may sometimes be, we still have a lot to be grateful for.
Yeah, it's a challenge when you live in the city. You don't get to observe a lot of things. You're too busy with the hustle and bustle, the traffic, etc. But I remember just being on the farm, for a couple of months at that point, you were able to you're monitoring all these things that you wouldn't have before. Like, where's the wind blowing from? And I'll never forget burning a fire and watching the smoke. And then all of a sudden, it started blowing in a sort of northwesterly direction. I'm saying, so it looks like a southeast wind, maybe bad weather. And I was surprised. Next day I heard bad weather's coming, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's really interesting paying attention to those things and get out. I encourage person, get out there with the wild a little bit. Get to see Mother Nature.
It still amazes me and it almost surprises me that, you ended up as one of your alternative careers is in fact farming. If you'd asked me this question maybe a decade ago, where do you see Ellio Solomon landing outside of politics? Farming and goats and whatnot would have been the last thing on my mind. But perhaps, as Mr. Bryan pointed out, I'm just going to assume, because you're not the only former politician to embrace farming, either at a backyard scale or perhaps even larger in your case, it might be, again, another example of the lack of, alternative opportunities in terms of employment, how to keep, food on the table and a roof over your head, whilst nobody's going to get rich off of farming. Certainly, you do earn a living from it. And there is also the satisfaction, the personal satisfaction you get from being one with nature, which I simply admire.
Well, I will say to you, first of all, correction. There's people who do get rich off farming. I had one individual telling me, he says, I used to make $5,000 a day when I went out there. And not that I'm farming for that.
Was it ganja farming?
No.
I'll tell you that, because they didn't make it legal in this country. I tell you, me and my brothers got plants.
It wasn't even ganja, but yeah, I mean, that might be something to consider now, considering the
it has to be legal first.
The referendum. But I think it's really just a case of, you remember when I was in office, I talked about the possibility of trying to see if we can get products from other countries and all of those things. And really, it was just a matter of trying to build my own ark, really. Just a matter of saying I want to be able to live completely off the grid.
Yes.
And, be able to say I don't need to have to go to the supermarket. I got my vegetables and my fruits and meat.
Yes.
And just, solar power or whatever it is I'm going to use as well, just to be total off the grid. That was the real intention. Yeah. Not that I consider myself to be a farmer per se, but saying that, it reminds me of a gentleman, I don't think he'll mind me mention his name, Mr. Clint Mole. He used to work with me at Computer Services many years ago. He and I became pretty close, and I remember him doing a little bit of gardening. And I used to think, this is weird. Why is this man doing this gardening? And he says, Ellio, it's something that will come to you once you get over your 40s. And I think to some extent he was right.
Yes.
I think as we get a little bit older, most of us anyway, we start to appreciate some of these simpler, more finer things of life, like getting out there and actually I love going out to East End and just sitting on the land.
Yes.
Getting out from all of the traffic and different things happen. Your mind relaxes. You can feel like when we talk about going to the Brack, right? Mm-hmm. You can just feel that weight that just comes off of you. Well, East End is my local Brack then.
Yeah, no, indeed. Well, I can certainly appreciate it. I mean, I have developed a fondness for gardening. I like the solitude of it. That's something you can do by yourself without the need for, much fanfare or additional help when you keep things small, or talawa, as they like to say in Jamaica. It's one of the reasons why I like fishing, because it's also something you can do as an individual. Though, again, if you're going to go offshore, it helps to have at least one other person with you, but it is a quiet and solitary, excursion or alternative. Much like why, as I got older, whilst I haven't played it in many, many years, I used to be a team sport guy, playing football and rugby and things of that nature, particularly contact sports. But now as I get older, and of course the body simply won't allow those activities anymore, it's another reason why I like golf. Because again, you're playing not against other people, you're largely playing against yourself, and it's something you can do entirely on your own. Which, as I get older, I tend to gravitate towards quieter things, less crowds, less people. And I totally understand when you say the goal is to, move yourself off grid.
Yeah,
I can certainly appreciate that.
I'm glad you raised that, because as I was younger, I mean, it was the same thing. You wanted to be around people, get to the club, whatever. Now it's like, I love being by myself.
Crowds don't do anything for me anymore.
Yeah.
My son tells me I'm old and boring, but I guess, he will have his own time.
See, I'll give you time.
One of these days. Yeah, give me
One
time.
day you'll understand.
One day you'll get it. You'll see that Daddy, was right all along. But it's interesting, though. Obviously, every time you remind me of it, I'm reminded that, I learned that phrase over 40 years ago. Red sky at night, sailor's delight. Red sky in the morning, sailors take warning. The things you remember of your parents from a time when you were much, much younger, that one definitely stuck out and still lives on in my mind as fresh as it, as if the conversation happened yesterday. But it was, in fact, over 40 years ago that it was said to me. And it's just, again, nice nostalgia as we get older.
Well, not to dredge up bad memories, but when did you lose your dad?
I lost my father in 1994.
How old were you? Just a little wee boy or something?
I was a teenager, I think, but, certainly not a full-blown adult yet. But it was a long time ago. It does get better. Never gets easier, but it gets better.
I know you said some things when my dad came in the studio, so it's something that, someone was telling me you can't prepare for it, right? And I'm sitting there and my dad's getting older, and of course, you know what's going to happen. It happens. I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, no, I just say to anyone who still has their parents, both of their parents, mother and father, to cling to them, appreciate them for who they are, because you only get one father and one mother, and when they're gone, it's
they're
over.
Gone. Yeah.
I'm just grateful God left me with my mother, who's my best friend. She's still around. My mother actually looks younger than most people her age, and she's in her 80s, but you really could not tell by looking at her. I think she has gotten shorter, though, because I know I haven't gotten taller, but she's this tiny little stick of dynamite, and she's gorgeous. So I'm just thankful to God that,
Stick of dynamite, huh?
He has
short wick or long wick?
Oh, depending on what mood you catch her in,
Yeah.
She can be extremely patient, but there are times when that patient can be exhausted, I suppose, like all of us.
And it was, thanks for sharing all those memories.
No, man, no
you
problem
still have me, buddy.
I know.
I'm here for
I'm
you.
grateful for that as well.
Yeah.
I really am.
Okay.
Thanking God for small mercies.
Yeah.
Just in terms of a public service announcement in the 9 or so minutes we have remaining before we have to sign off for today, the Royal Cayman Islands Police Service issued a press release earlier this week urging citizens and residents of the Cayman Islands to be careful of certain scams that are currently working their way through social media, but also on classified websites such as EK Trade, basically advising the public to remain vigilant when looking to either buy or rent properties and vehicles. Police said that con merchants, not even con artists, but con merchants are falsely advertising apartments and vehicles at unusually low prices. Given the old adage, if it looks too good to be true, it probably is too good. Victims of these fraudulent ads are asked to make advance payments or deposits, including shipping costs in case of vehicles for services that are truly never intended to be delivered. The RCIPS said in their press release that it is currently looking into a number of these reports, but believes there may be additional victims who have not yet come forward. The advice the police are giving to the public, anyone who believes that they may be affected is strongly encouraged to file a police report or simply pick up the phone and call the police at 949-4222. But again, there are some scams going on across our island, particular to either if you're looking to rent or buy property or you're looking to buy a vehicle. There are some scammers out there, and if you do come across a deal that just looks, again, legitimately too good to be true, then you might want to pause and verify the offer that is being put forward. And certainly, again, don't put down a payment or make a deposit for, merchandise or anything that you haven't seen, touched, or at least visited yourself to make sure these things are legitimate. Otherwise, you too may fall prey to these con merchants.
One of my pastimes, believe it or not, was when I would see people contact me from the fake accounts in Facebook, telling me how I can win money. I just go right along with them, really, tell me how does this work? It just never ceases to amaze me. Of course, you get to a point where you say, okay, I've had enough now, I've entertained myself.
That's right.
And then you just block them and hopefully report them. But it's just amazing. It's like they don't give up. It's like, my God, for the love of money.
Whether it be AI, I think AI is the evolution from the cloned accounts. I used to receive friend requests from people that from known names. But then you ask yourself, what? This person is not already on my friend list? Oh, let me click them and add them because I know them. So they start out as recognizable names. You click them as a friend. Then shortly after receiving your obviously approval to follow or to be a friend, then they will follow up with a message on social media. Hey, how you doing? Striking up a general conversation. Then they say, oh, by the way, did you hear about the grant program that is being offered?
Yeah, that's it.
That's when you know this is nonsense. This is a scam.
This is not my friend.
This is not my friend. But like you, I do like to entertain myself by entertaining their nonsense.
I do it all the time.
I ask them questions. I continue
Really?
the conversation with them.
How does that work?
You know, I just say, listen, tell me more. I mean, you know what? I've been looking for a deal like this, and I got an extra windfall in cash this month. I'm just looking for a place to put it.
You and I are
I
the
play
same,
with them
Austin.
for a while.
I do the same thing.
Yes. The
And
simple things we do to get,
And then you
entertainment.
respond, first of all, I know you're not my friend Austin Harris.
Yes. You're a moron if you believe this conversation up until this point, and I'm deleting you going forward. But thank you for entertaining me for the few short moments we were together.
Yeah, oh Lord, that's great.
I do get a sense of enjoyment out of it.
Yeah,
you
so
know?
do I.
Yeah, so why not? Yeah, what do you do?
Yeah, they're trying to mess with me. We're gonna mess with them.
Life hands you lemons, make lemonade, baby. There was another, speaking of police reports, this one kind of troubled me a little bit, and it brought back memories or visions, not, thank God, of things that have happened with a degree of regularity in the Cayman Islands, but I think of particular terrorist activities that have occurred, particularly stateside. There was an article that appeared in the local media, I think today's Cayman Compass includes it, where it says, hit and run driver who struck pedestrians was 3 times over the limit. It says a driver of a Honda Fit who was 3 times over the legal limit for alcohol was arrested on Saturday morning on suspicion of DUI and other traffic offenses after he plowed into 2 pedestrians who were walking along the North Sound Road close to the junction of Seymour Drive. It was reported that at approximately 1:40 a.m. on Saturday, the Honda left the road, collided with a post, then struck the 2 pedestrians. The police said the car then left the scene. Emergency medical services attended the location and provided medical attention to the pedestrians who had received, thankfully, only minor injuries. Soon afterwards, police officers located the Honda. The driver was arrested, and a roadside breath test was conducted, which found that he was 3 times over the legal limit for alcohol consumption. The case is currently under investigation. The police press release ended.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see what comes out of that. I mean, I remember having some of these discussions in our past life.
Yeah.
And again, saying, a person who gets behind, we know what the purpose of a car is.
Mm-hmm.
It's transportation to get us from A to B. And a person who gets into a car drunk knows that car now is a weapon.
Yes.
It's something that arguably you're not even in control of. It's going at a great speed. And now you're talking about, on top of that, consciously doing that, then driving, knocking down pedestrians, then to add insult to injury, leaving the scene of the crime.
Yes. Yes.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens.
It'll be very interesting if he doesn't get charged with dangerous driving, along with the DUI, leaving the scene, other traffic offenses, leaving the scene of an accident. Again, though, I'm just grateful to God.
Did anyone die?
No.
Okay.
No,
great.
thank you. I was going to say, that's what I'm grateful to God, that the 2 pedestrians who were doing nothing but, walking along the road, received only minor injuries. The minute I read this article, my mind ran to the most recent event that took place, I think, in New Orleans, when there was a terrorist obviously taking a truck and just basically plowing down people on Bourbon Street.
Yeah.
Before that, it seems to be, at least stateside, and some European destinations, jurisdictions, where now the simplest terrorist act is proven to be the most popular, simply, to your point, taking a vehicle and turning it into a missile of death.
Right.
And that is exactly what it is. When you get behind the wheel of a car, you really do take your life and the life of others into your hands. That's why it's a responsibility. Yeah. That's why you have to have a license in order to get behind the wheel of a car. But before that, you need to learn the rules of the road, which, by the way, there are persons who have licenses today that still don't know the rules to the road. I got into a little bit of a road rage incident the other day, but thankfully it was just between me and my closed window. I did think about putting the window down, and at one stage I thought about, pulling over on the side of the road and continuing the conversation, but I decided best against it. But there's just so many people on the roads today that just need to learn how to drive, period.
Yeah.
And, well, we hope that message will be carried through, a bit further. But that's all the time we have for you today at 28 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock. Encouraging you to tune in again tomorrow. One of the articles that were contained in today's media that we didn't touch on sees the financial services sector, but particularly Cayman Finance, calling for a balanced approach to immigration reform, whilst also encouraging for work permits to be granted faster. Maybe we'll talk about that tomorrow. But for now, we're your host, Ellio Solomon, myself, Austin Harris, wishing you a fantastic night. And be sure to tune in to more Straight Talk tomorrow right here on Bobo FM.
The home of the BBC